Hi, it's your host, Jenna Duran. Welcome to NFW. This week, I decided to release excerpts from my books as my episodes for my podcast. I hope you enjoy Things We Left Unsaid. Written and narrated by Jenna Duran. A Durand Publishing production. 1. Taylor. The day she signed their divorce papers, Taylor was sure she never wanted to see her ex-husband again. Their 2-year marriage had been one of the biggest mistakes of her life. The only mistake bigger than marrying Ian was the thing she allowed him to do to her heart before she finally let go. The tighter she held on to him and the vows they promised each other, the more distant he became. She had been fragile and stupid. What 23-year-old was known for making the best decisions? He was the older guy with life experience and a love of fast cars. When they met, she'd been starstruck. He was the 27-year-old heartthrob. Taylor almost couldn't believe her luck. Prince Charming in her eyes, he treated her like a princess. She'd been an intern at his father's company and was sure she was seconds away from being fired for one screw-up or another. Her immediate supervisor loved sending her on the errands he did not want to run himself, even if it was something a new intern like her should not be doing. "Mom, Mom, Mom!" her son urgently called out, drawing her out of her thoughts, as he scrambled up her bed like the little monkey he could be. Saint's face was covered with honey and breadcrumbs. A toothy grin played on his lips as his grubby hands rubbed the remains of his breakfast on her bedsheet. His soft cocoa-brown skin glowed with health and vitality. "Mom, Dee says we can go to the park and play with the doggies today." Smiling, Taylor sat up and tickled the tip of his nose. Saint was her life. He was the reason she did not wallow in her loss. Also why she could not hate Ian with every fiber of her being. "Well, I guess you and Dee are going to the park," she teased, tapping the edge of his button nose. His bright brown eyes glittered with excitement. 4 years old, he loved to move, to wiggle, and play with animals big and small. Taylor was sure he would plague all of the dogs by chasing them as fast as his plump legs could carry him. She wished she could go with him. Taylor would rather watch Saint get dirty as he played with every dog in the park than to meet with her ex. Saint crawled up between her legs and plopped down in front of her, his back pressed against her chest as his brownish-red curls brushed against the underside of her chin. 5 years felt like a lifetime had passed. Their divorce had been largely carried out by their lawyers. Ian had been eager to get rid of his unwanted wife. He agreed to every one of her demands and FedExed her the signed papers. It was just as well. Taylor would have been tempted to tell him about Saint. Even back then, she had been sure Ian would come back to her. Taylor thought he would realize what he stood to lose and come home to her. "Can we have a doggy, Mommy?" Saint asked for the millionth time as he wiggled his tiny toes. Ever since she started reading Clifford the Big Red Dog to him, he'd been asking for a dog. As an only child with only her and his nanny Dee to keep him company, Saint would pack their apartment with animals of every sort. Taylor wrapped her arms around him and pulled him close. I don't know, baby. Dogs like space and trees." Part 2. Ian. Ian McDougal stepped off his private plane and looked around the private airfield. This was where Taylor chose to live? The girl he knew hated being further than 10 blocks away from a sushi restaurant, and complained if she could not get a bottle of wine past midnight. Safe Harbor looked like the world's quietest town. He would not be here for long, 3 hours at the most. Long enough to get her to sign some documents, then back to reality. 5 years, and the thought of seeing Taylor again made his palms sweat. 34 years old, and she still had the ability to make him feel like he was a teenager on his first date. She was a better person than him. Always thinking of others, Taylor used to go above and beyond for her family and friends. He had never sacrificed for anyone other than himself before he met her. Smart, capable, beautiful, and kind, Taylor used to look at him like he could lift the world on his shoulders. The adulation in her eyes made him want to try. The first time he saw her, Ian thought the whole world was on mute. He could see her brown, pillow-soft lips moving, but he heard nothing. His first thoughts were not of love, but on how quickly he could get her into his bed. Slipping a pair of glasses onto his face, he started towards his waiting town car. The summer sun glinted off his white button-down shirt and his black slacks. Seeing Taylor again would be unpleasant, but he would survive. The end. I hope you enjoyed listening to Things We Left Unsaid, Chapter 1. I hope you also check out my other episodes of NFW. If you would like to continue to read Things We Left Unsaid, it's available on Amazon.com. If you like this podcast, I hope you like and subscribe, as well as share with your friends.